Long ago, every human being on Earth carried the exact same shade of skin. There were no continents of color yet, only one origin, one sun, one story. Tonight we travel back before borders, before nations, before names were ever spoken. We follow a slow and patient journey, written across deserts, mountains, and frozen plains. Let your eyes rest now, and let the quiet story of human color begin to unfold. Somewhere in East Africa, under a relentless and ancient sun, the very first humans were born with skin as dark as midnight. It would take more than 100,000 years and a journey across every corner of the world for that single shade to scatter into thousands of variations. Tonight's story carries no danger and no urgency, only the slow rhythm of skin quietly adapting to light, one generation at a time. Picture the warm air of that first evening, the grass turning gold, the sky deepening into orange and rose. As the dark settles around you now, let this gentle story of color and ancestry carry your mind towards sleep. 200,000 years ago, in the warm heart of East Africa, our story begins quietly. The earliest members of our species lived beneath a sun that rarely softened. Their skin, deeply pigmented, was no accident. It was already a quiet form of protection. Every cell carried melanin, a dark pigment that absorbed the harshest rays before they could cause harm. This was not a flaw to be corrected, but a perfect answer to the world they were born into. Melanin is a simple molecule, yet it carries an enormous responsibility. It is produced by tiny cells called melanocytes, scattered quietly through the skin's deepest layer. In strong sunlight, these cells work tirelessly, producing more pigment to form a natural shield. This shield absorbs ultraviolet light before it reaches the delicate DNA within our cells. Without this protection, the sun's invisible rays could quietly damage the very blueprint of life. Near the equator, sunlight falls almost straight down, fierce and constant through every season. The ultraviolet radiation here is some of the strongest found anywhere on Earth. For early humans living in this light, dark skin was not a preference, it was survival. Lighter skin in such conditions would have left the body vulnerable to harm, slowly, every day. And so, for the first chapter of our species, one shade of skin quietly dominated the human story. Folate is a nutrient most people never think about, yet it shaped the color of our ancestors. It is essential for healthy cell division, especially during pregnancy and early growth. Strong ultraviolet light can break down folate just beneath the surface of the skin. Dark, melanin-rich skin slowed this damage, quietly protecting new generations before they were born. In this way, the deepest tones of human skin were tied not just to comfort, but to survival itself. For tens of thousands of years, this single adaptation served humanity perfectly well. There was no need for variation, no pressure to change, no reason to wander far. Life moved with the rhythm of the savanna, the dry season, the rains, the long, warm nights. Skin remained dark, eyes remained dark, and the body stayed in quiet balance with its sun. But far in the future, a different kind of pressure was waiting, patient and unseen. Eventually, as generations passed, small groups began to drift beyond their familiar lands. They followed rivers, animal herds, and the gentle slope of coastlines northward. At first, the change was so slow it would have been invisible to anyone living through it. A few kilometers each generation, a few seasons further from the equator each lifetime. No one realized they were beginning one of the longest and quietest journeys in human history. The land beyond Africa offered no single climate, no single kind of sun. Some regions burned just as fiercely as the savanna they had left behind. Others, further north, grew cooler, grayer, and dimmer with every passing season. The human body, so finely tuned to one type of light, now faced an unfamiliar sky. And slowly, without any conscious choice, the body began to listen and respond. Further from the equator, sunlight falls at a slant, softened by atmosphere and angle. The ultraviolet rays that once threatened cells now barely reach the skin at all. In this dimmer world, heavy pigmentation was no longer a shield. It became a quiet burden. Too much melanin and too little sun left the body unable to make enough vitamin D. And vitamin D, as it turns out, is not a small detail. It is essential to life itself. Vitamin D is created when ultraviolet light touches the skin and triggers a quiet chemical reaction. This vitamin strengthens bones, supports the immune system, and keeps the body in balance. In strong sunlight, even a few minutes of exposure is more than enough to produce it. But in weaker, northern light, the body needs far more exposure to make the same amount. Dark skin, so protective near the equator, slowed this process when the sun grew faint. Over hundreds of generations, those with slightly lighter skin in northern climates had a quiet advantage. Their bodies could absorb just enough sunlight to produce the vitamin D they needed. This small advantage meant fewer illnesses, stronger bones, and slightly healthier children. It was not dramatic or sudden, only a gentle tilt in nature's careful balance. But across thousands of years, gentle tilts can quietly reshape an entire population. This is how evolution often works, not through sudden leaps, but through patient accumulation. A slightly lighter shade here, a slightly better chance of survival there. Generation after generation, the average tone of skin in northern regions began to shift. No single person noticed the change. It unfolded over a span longer than memory itself. And so, the human story quietly began to divide into many gentle variations of one origin. By the time tens of thousands of years had passed, humans had reached nearly every corner of the earth. Each new landscape carried its own quality of light, its own rhythm of seasons. And in each place, skin slowly adjusted to match the world around it. Not as a decision, but as a quiet, patient negotiation between body and sun. This negotiation is still written in our skin today, a map of ancient journeys. Beneath the surface we see, skin is made of careful, layered architecture. The epidermis, the outermost layer, is where most of life's visible color is held. Within it, melanocytes quietly produce two main types of pigment. Melanin creates brown and black tones, while pheomelanin creates red and yellow hues. The balance between these two pigments shapes nearly every variation of human skin color. Every person, regardless of skin tone, has roughly the same number of melanocytes. What differs is not the quantity of these cells, but how actively they work. In skin built for strong sun, melanocytes produce pigment constantly and abundantly. In skin built for weaker sun, they remain quieter, producing far less. This is the gentle secret behind the wide spectrum of human skin we see today. Deep within our cells, certain genes quietly direct this entire process. One of the most important is called SLC24A5, discovered only in recent decades. A single variation in this gene is linked to significantly lighter skin in many populations. It likely arose only a few thousand years ago, spreading slowly across parts of Europe. A tiny change in one gene, and an entire continent's complexion began to shift. Researchers studying ancient skeletons have found something remarkable about early Europeans. Many of the very first people to settle in Europe, thousands of years ago, still carried dark skin. The lighter skin we associate with the region today arrived far later than most assume. It spread gradually, shaped by farming, diet, and the dim light of northern winters. History, it seems, moves slower and more quietly than we often imagine. When humans shifted from hunting and gathering to farming, their diets changed dramatically. Hunter-gatherers often ate fish and meat rich in natural vitamin D. Early farmers, relying heavily on grain, lost much of that dietary source. With less vitamin D from food, the pressure to absorb it through skin grew stronger. This shift in diet may have quietly accelerated the spread of lighter skin across Europe. It is a strange thought that a change in what we ate could change how we look. Yet biology often connects threads we never expect to be related. Diet, light, geography, and genetics all wove together slowly over centuries. No single force acted alone. Each pressure nudged the body gently in the same direction. And the result was a population whose skin quietly adapted to match its new life. In East Asia, a similar story unfolded, but through different genetic paths. Lighter skin tones evolved independently, separate from the European story entirely. A gene known as OCA2 played a significant role in this region's adaptation. This is one of evolution's most fascinating patterns, the same outcome, reached by different roads. Nature, it seems, often finds more than one way to answer the same quiet question. Convergent evolution is the name given to this pattern. Different paths, similar results. It tells us that lighter skin was never one single invention, passed from one group to another. Instead, it emerged again and again, wherever humans settled far from the equator. Each population responded to its own light, its own land, its own quiet pressures. The diversity of human skin is, in this sense, many separate stories with one shared cause. Not every northern population followed the same gentle path toward lighter skin. The Inuit peoples of the Arctic remained notably darker than expected for their latitude. Their traditional diet, rich in fish and marine mammals, was naturally abundant in vitamin D. Because their food already supplied what sunlight could not, their skin had less pressure to change. This is a quiet reminder that skin color was never only about sunlight. Diet mattered just as deeply. It is a delicate balance. Too much ultraviolet light, and the body suffers. Too little, and the body cannot produce what it needs to survive. Every population, in its own quiet way, found its own point of balance. Some leaned on sunlight, some leaned on diet, and many leaned on both together. The story of human skin is really a story of balance, repeated endlessly across the earth. High in the Andes Mountains, another unique adaptation quietly took shape. At extreme altitude, the atmosphere is thinner and ultraviolet exposure is unusually intense. Populations here developed skin tones suited not to latitude, but to elevation itself. Their bodies also adapted in other quiet ways: deeper lung capacity, different blood chemistry. Skin color, it turns out, is only one small part of a much larger story of human adaptation. Altitude changes how sunlight behaves, stripping away some of the atmosphere's natural filter. This means even regions far from the equator can experience intense ultraviolet exposure. The human body, ever adaptable, responded to this local reality just as it had elsewhere. It did not matter whether the heat came from latitude or elevation. Only the light itself mattered. Wherever the sun pressed strongly upon the skin, darker pigmentation quietly followed. Some of the darkest human skin tones in the world are found near the Sahara today. This is no coincidence. Few places on Earth receive sunlight as intensely and consistently. Here, the original adaptation of our earliest ancestors remains closest to unchanged. It is, in a sense, the oldest surviving chapter of the human story still being lived today. Across thousands of generations, this land and this skin have remained quietly in harmony. If we could compress 200,000 years into a single quiet evening, the story would look like this. One shade begins in the warm heart of Africa, glowing steadily under a fierce and constant sun. Slowly, like ink spreading through water, that shade begins to shift as people wander outward. Some tones deepen further at high altitude or beneath fierce equatorial light. Others soften gradually beneath the pale, dim skies of the far north. By the time this slow story reaches today, no single shade can claim to be the original, unchanged form. Every tone of human skin is a quiet adaptation, shaped by thousands of years of light and land. None is more evolved, more advanced, or more correct than another. Each is simply a different chapter of the same long, patient, shared journey. And as your eyes grow heavy now, let this thought settle gently into the quiet of sleep. Around 70,000 years ago, a small group of humans began a journey that would change everything. They crossed out of Africa, following a narrow corridor near the Red Sea. Behind them lay a homeland warmed by a sun they had always known. Ahead lay an unfamiliar world, vast and unmeasured, stretching far beyond imagination. They could not have known they were carrying the seed of every future variation of human skin. Early migrations likely followed coastlines, where food from the sea was steady and familiar. The pace of this journey was unbearably slow by modern standards. Generations, not days. A family might travel only a short distance in an entire lifetime. Yet across centuries, these small movements added up to journeys spanning entire continents. Patience, more than speed, carried humanity across the ancient world. As groups moved into Central Asia, they encountered colder winters and shorter days. The sun here was gentler, softer, filtered through more atmosphere and more cloud. Bodies built for blazing equatorial light now faced months of dim, pale skies. Slowly, The pressure that once favored only dark skin began to ease. In its place, a new and gentle pressure began, favoring tones better suited to weaker light. Across thousands of years, some of these wandering groups settled in present-day Europe. Ice still covered much of the land during certain periods of this long migration. Survival here depended on shelter, fire, and careful use of every available resource. Sunlight, when it appeared at all in winter, was brief, weak, and low on the horizon. In this dim world, the body's quiet adaptation toward lighter skin slowly continued. Fire offered warmth, but it could not replace the sun's role in producing vitamin D. For thousands of years, this remained a quiet challenge for northern populations. Those whose skin could absorb a little more light, even on overcast days, held a small advantage. This advantage repeated itself softly across generation after generation. And so, the populations of the far north grew paler, season by season, century by century. Further east, other groups pressed onward into the vast plains of Siberia. Here, winters were long, brutal, and almost entirely without strong sunlight. Survival demanded resourcefulness, thick clothing, careful hunting, deep knowledge of the land. The body, ever patient, continued its quiet negotiation with the available light. Over time, the skin of these populations softened in tone, much like those in Europe. Eventually, some of these groups crossed into the Americas through a now-vanished land bridge. This crossing took place during a period when sea levels were dramatically lower. The journey carried small bands of humans into a hemisphere no person had ever seen. They brought with them generations of quiet adaptation, written into their skin and bones. In their new home, the slow process of adjustment to light and land would begin once again. As populations spread southward through the Americas, climates shifted dramatically once again. Some settled in dense, sun-drenched tropical regions near the equator. Others remained in cooler highlands, shaped by altitude rather than latitude. Each environment whispered its own quiet instructions to the body across centuries. And the body, as it always had, listened patiently and responded in its own time. Meanwhile, in South Asia, populations developed some of the most complex patterns of skin tone. Strong sunlight throughout much of the year favored continued, abundant pigmentation. Yet genetic mixing across centuries of migration created remarkable diversity within the region. Today, South Asia holds some of the widest ranges of skin tone found anywhere on Earth. This diversity reflects not confusion, but a long and layered history of human movement. Trade routes, marriages, and migrations meant populations rarely stayed perfectly isolated. Genes moved quietly between groups, carried by travelers, traders, and settlers. Over centuries, this constant gentle mixing blurred the lines between any fixed category. Human skin color, in truth, was never made of strict borders or sudden boundaries. It exists instead as a long, soft gradient, shaped by light, land, and quiet human connection. If we could see every human skin tone on Earth lined up side by side, there would be no hard edges. One shade would blend gently into the next, almost too gradually to notice. There is no single point where one tone definitively becomes another. This soft gradient is the visible signature of thousands of years of gradual adaptation. It is, in its own quiet way, one of the most beautiful patterns written by evolution. By the time agriculture spread widely across Europe, lighter skin had become common. Genetic studies of ancient remains show this shift happened more recently than many expect. Some populations only reached their lightest average tones within the last few thousand years. In the context of 200,000 years of human history, this is remarkably recent. Evolution, even when it feels permanent, is often still quietly unfolding even now. As farming spread, populations grew denser, and diets shifted further away from the sea. With less vitamin D available through food, the pressure on skin to lighten increased. This pressure interacted quietly with existing genetic variations already present in small amounts. Natural selection favored those variations, allowing them to spread more widely across generations. Slowly, an entire population's average complexion shifted in response to a changing way of life. In the far north, where summer light stretches long and winter darkness stretches longer still, another pattern emerged. Populations here developed among the lightest skin tones recorded anywhere on Earth. Pale skin in this region allowed maximum absorption of the limited sunlight available. Pale hair and eyes, too, are believed to be connected to this same gentle pressure. Each feature quietly adjusted, piece by piece, to match the soft, dim light of this northern world. Even here, diet played a quiet supporting role alongside sunlight. Coastal populations with access to fish often retained slightly more pigmentation than inland farmers. This subtle difference reflects the same gentle balance seen throughout human history. Sunlight and food have always worked together, each filling the gaps the other leaves behind. Wherever one was scarce, the body leaned more heavily upon the other. Across every continent, this same quiet story repeated itself in countless gentle variations. No single rule explains all of human skin color, only a shared set of patient pressures. Sunlight, diet, geography, and genetics wove together differently in every region. The result was not chaos, but a remarkably ordered diversity, shaped by logic and time. Each tone of skin alive today carries within it a quiet record of this long, shared migration. It is worth pausing here, in the quiet of the night, to consider how connected this story truly is. Every population on Earth descends from those same first humans beneath that ancient African sun. The differences we see today are not separations, but branches of one continuous tree. Each branch grew gently in the direction of its own light, its own land, its own life. Yet all branches remain joined, quietly, at the very same ancient root. As this chapter of our story closes, let your thoughts settle on that single shared origin. One sun, one people, one slow and patient journey across the surface of the earth. Every tone of skin you have ever seen is simply a chapter within that same long story. There is nothing to compare, nothing to rank, only variation shaped by time and place. Let this thought rest gently in your mind as the night grows quieter around you. To understand why skin color shifted so gently across geography, we must return to one small molecule. Vitamin D may seem like a minor detail, yet its influence on human history runs remarkably deep. It supports calcium absorption, allowing bones to grow strong and remain resilient. Without enough of it, bones can soften, weaken, and bend under their own quiet strain. For early humans, this single vitamin shaped survival as much as food or shelter ever did. In children, severe vitamin D deficiency can lead to a condition known as rickets. Bones affected by rickets may bend gently under the body's own weight over time. This condition would have been especially dangerous in the harsh conditions of ancient life. A weakened skeleton meant slower movement, reduced strength, and greater vulnerability. Natural selection, ever patient, quietly favored those whose bodies avoided this fate. Vitamin D also plays a quiet but essential role during pregnancy and early development. A mother's vitamin D levels can influence the strength and growth of her child's skeleton. In regions of weak sunlight, this created a steady, gentle pressure toward lighter skin. Lighter skin allowed mothers to absorb just enough light, even during short winter days. In this way, the well-being of the next generation quietly shaped the skin of the one before it. Sunlight itself is a strange and inconsistent resource across the surface of our planet. Near the equator, it arrives strong and steady throughout almost every season of the year. Further from the equator, it grows weaker, more angled, and far less predictable. The human body could not control the sun, so instead, it learned to adjust to it. Skin tone became one of the quietest yet most effective tools in this long adjustment. If we imagine looking down at Earth from a great and peaceful height, a pattern becomes visible. Regions near the equator receive direct, concentrated sunlight throughout the year. Regions further north or south receive sunlight at a slant, spread thin across more atmosphere. This single geometric fact, more than anything else, shaped the global pattern of human skin tone. Biology did not choose color at random. It followed quietly behind the geometry of light. Scientists studying this pattern often describe a gentle gradient stretching from the equator outward. The closer a population's ancestry lies to the equator, the deeper its average pigmentation tends to be. The further from the equator, the lighter that average tone tends to become. Exceptions exist, shaped by diet, altitude, or migration, yet the overall pattern remains remarkably consistent. It is one of the clearest examples in nature of environment quietly shaping biology over time. Researchers have studied this pattern for over a century, slowly refining their understanding. Early theories were simple, sometimes incomplete, occasionally shaped by the biases of their time. Modern genetics has allowed scientists to trace these changes with far greater precision. We now understand that skin color involves dozens of genes working together, not just one. Each gene contributes a small, quiet adjustment, and together they create the full range we see today. No single gene determines skin color entirely on its own. Instead, skin tone emerges from a delicate interplay between many genetic instructions. Some genes influence how much pigment is produced, others influence how it is distributed. This complexity explains why skin tone varies so smoothly, rather than in sharp categories. Nature rarely works in simple switches. It prefers slow dials, turned gently over time. Imagine evolution not as a series of sudden decisions, but as many slow dials turning together. Each generation, the dials shift only slightly, nudged by the pressures of survival. Over thousands of years, these tiny shifts accumulate into something remarkably significant. This is the quiet mathematics behind every visible difference in human skin color today. Small changes, repeated patiently, are often more powerful than any single dramatic leap. Time, more than anything else, is the true architect of human diversity. 200,000 years is almost impossible for the mind to truly grasp. Within that vast stretch, countless small adjustments accumulated, layer upon gentle layer. What we see today is simply the visible result of an extraordinarily long, quiet process. Nothing about human skin color happened quickly. It was built slowly, with patience. It is worth remembering, as the night grows deeper, just how recent this entire story truly is. Modern humans have existed for roughly 200,000 years. Compared to the billions of years of life on Earth, this is barely a single breath. And yet, within that brief breath, an entire world of human diversity quietly took shape. Let that vastness of time settle gently over you as your mind begins to drift. Every wave that touches a shore is shaped by forces too slow and vast to notice in a single moment. Human skin color is much the same, shaped by forces too slow to see within one lifetime. Yet across generations, the pattern becomes clear, steady, and undeniably real. We are, each of us, living proof of a process that began long before memory existed. And we will, each of us, quietly continue shaping its next chapter. Today, as populations move and mix more freely than ever before in human history, the pattern continues to evolve. Genetic diversity within families and communities is growing in quiet, gradual ways. The lines between regions, once shaped slowly by isolation, are softening even further. This does not erase the past. It simply adds new chapters to an already long story. Human skin color, in this sense, has never truly stopped evolving. In modern cities, descendants of every ancient migration now live side by side. The slow journeys of distant ancestors have, in a sense, finally reconnected. Skin tones that diverged across tens of thousands of years now meet again in quiet daily life. It is a strange and beautiful thought that this old story is still gently unfolding around us. And it will continue long after tonight's quiet story has ended. As this chapter closes, let the logic of light settle softly into your thoughts. Skin color was never a flaw, a ranking, or a mistake to be corrected. It was, and remains, a quiet and elegant answer to the question every body must answer. How much light is here, and how can I live gently within it? Let that quiet question rest now, as your own eyes grow heavier in the dark. Long before modern travel, humans were already far more connected than we often imagine. Trade routes stretched across deserts, mountains, and seas, carrying goods, ideas, and people. Along these routes, genetic mixing occurred quietly, generation after generation. Few populations in history remained as isolated as we sometimes assume. Human history has always been, in its own quiet way, a story of connection. Port cities, in particular, became quiet centers of genetic and cultural exchange. Sailors, merchants, and travelers carried their ancestry far beyond their place of birth. Over centuries, these small movements blended populations more than borders ever could. The resulting diversity within these regions often reflects centuries of quiet mixing. Skin tone here became a living record of trade winds and distant horizons. Empires, too, played a quiet role in reshaping human populations across centuries. As borders expanded and armies, traders, and settlers moved across new lands, genetics moved with them. Conquest and migration, however difficult their histories, left lasting genetic traces. These traces remain visible today in the subtle diversity within many modern populations. History, even its harder chapters, is written quietly into the biology of those who came after. Mountain passes, river valleys, and coastal paths often determined where ancient populations could meet. Geography itself acted as both barrier and bridge throughout human history. Where movement was easy, mixing was common. Where it was difficult, isolation lingered longer. This is why some regions show remarkably gradual variation, while others show sharper differences. The land itself, quietly, helped author the patterns we still see in human skin today. Genetic studies of ancient remains have revealed migrations far more complex than once believed. Populations once thought to be simple and static were, in truth, constantly shifting and blending. Waves of migration arrived, settled, mixed, and were followed by new waves in turn. Each layer left a quiet genetic trace, visible only through careful modern analysis. The human story, it seems, has always been written and rewritten many times over. Archaeologists and geneticists working together have slowly pieced this complex story back together. Ancient bones, teeth, and even soil samples can reveal traces of DNA thousands of years old. From these quiet fragments, entire migration patterns can be carefully reconstructed. Each discovery adds another gentle piece to humanity's enormous, shared puzzle. We are, in many ways, still slowly learning the full story of our own ancestry. One particularly fascinating discovery involves the interbreeding between early humans and Neanderthals. As humans migrated into Europe, they encountered populations already adapted to its colder climate. Genetic evidence shows that some interbreeding took place between these two human groups. Traces of Neanderthal DNA remain in many people today, especially those of European and Asian ancestry. Some of these traces may have even influenced skin and hair characteristics in subtle ways. Neanderthals had lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years before modern humans arrived. Their bodies were already deeply adapted to the cold, dim conditions of the region. When the two populations met and occasionally interbred, useful genetic traits could be exchanged. This may have offered modern humans a quiet shortcut to traits already suited for northern life. Evolution, it seems, sometimes borrows solutions rather than inventing them from nothing. This exchange between human groups reminds us that our history is rarely a single straight line. It is closer to a quiet network of paths, crossing and merging again and again. Each crossing left behind small genetic gifts, passed forward without anyone fully realizing it. We carry these gifts today, quietly woven into our skin, our bones, our blood. Our ancestry is far richer and more tangled than any simple family tree could ever show. In more recent centuries, global exploration and migration accelerated this mixing even further. Populations that had remained separated for tens of thousands of years began to meet again. This reunion was not always gentle, and history carries the weight of that complexity. Yet biologically, it added new layers of diversity to communities across every continent. The slow story of human skin color continues to be written, even now, in every new generation. Today, many people carry ancestry from multiple regions, sometimes from several continents at once. Their skin tones reflect not one single migration, but several, layered quietly together. This blending does not erase history. It simply adds new chapters within the same long story. Each person, in their own way, becomes a living record of countless ancient journeys. There is something deeply calming in recognizing how connected we have always been. Genetic studies show that the differences between any two individuals, regardless of skin tone, are remarkably small. The vast majority of human genetic variation exists within populations, not between them. Skin color, while visible and significant, represents only a tiny fraction of our genetic story. Beneath the surface, humanity is far more alike than different. This is, perhaps, one of the most reassuring discoveries modern science has offered us. It is humbling to consider how much of this story remains unwritten, even now. Future discoveries may reveal details about ancient migrations we cannot yet imagine. Each generation of scientists adds quietly to a story that may never be fully complete. This incompleteness is not a weakness. It is simply the nature of deep history. We are, all of us, still learning the long story written into our own skin. Tonight's story has moved slowly, deliberately, much like the process it describes. There has been no urgency here, no rush toward a single dramatic conclusion. Instead, we have followed light, time, and patience across 200,000 years. This pace, slow and steady, mirrors exactly how this remarkable diversity came to exist. Nothing about human skin color happened quickly, and nothing about understanding it should either. As we move toward the final chapter of tonight's story, let your body settle deeper into rest. There is nothing left to solve here, nothing urgent left to understand before sleep. The story will still be here tomorrow, patient and unchanged, waiting quietly. For now, let your thoughts soften, your breathing slow, your mind grow still. The long migration of humanity continues outside these walls, but here, only rest remains. Let this chapter close now, quietly, like the last light fading from an evening sky. Somewhere far away, under a different sun, this same story continues without you. But here, in this quiet moment, there is only the soft weight of sleep settling in. Let it come gently, without resistance, the way starlight settles over a darkened field. Rest now, and let the rest of this story wait until you are ready to wake. If we return, one final time, to where this story began, the savannah still glows the same soft gold. The sun that shaped the very first humans still rises there, patient and unchanged. From this single place, an entire world of human diversity quietly unfolded. Every tone of skin alive today traces its roots back to this same gentle light. It is, in its own quiet way, the truest home that all of humanity shares. Imagine, for a moment, that this entire story began with something as small as a seed. One small adaptation, one small advantage, repeated quietly across generations. From that small beginning grew an entire forest of human variation. Nothing about this growth was forced, rushed, or unnatural. It simply unfolded, patiently, over time. Nature rarely shouts its changes. It whispers them, slowly, across thousands of years. Just as rain slowly shapes a landscape, light slowly shaped the human body. Neither force works quickly, yet both leave lasting, undeniable marks over time. The valleys carved by water and the variations carved by sunlight share the same quiet patience. Both remind us that some of the most powerful forces in nature move the slowest. Human skin color is, in this sense, a landscape shaped gently by light across deep time. Rivers do not argue with the land. They simply follow its shape, patiently, year after year. In much the same way, the human body did not resist its environment. It adapted to it. This quiet cooperation between body and world is, perhaps, the deepest lesson of this story. Survival was never about fighting the sun, but about learning to live gently within its light. That lesson remains true today, long after the migrations of our ancestors have ended. As this story gently winds toward its quiet end, consider how vast this journey truly was. From one small group beneath an African sun to billions spread across every continent. From one shared shade of skin to thousands of gentle variations, woven through history. And yet, beneath every tone, the same ancient story quietly remains. One people, one origin, one long and patient journey toward the world we live in today. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you carry this entire story quietly within you. Your skin, whatever its tone, holds within it thousands of years of careful adaptation. It is not simply color. It is memory, written slowly across deep and patient time. There is nothing to question or compare in this memory. only something to quietly appreciate. Let that quiet appreciation settle over you as the night grows softer still. Each star above carries light that began its journey long before it ever reached your eyes. In much the same way, your skin carries light's influence from long before your own life began. Both are quiet messages, traveling slowly across vast stretches of time to reach you now. There is something deeply calming in recognizing how connected we are to such enormous histories. Let this calm settle gently into your thoughts as your body relaxes further into rest. As the candle of this story burns low, let your own thoughts grow quiet alongside it. There is nothing left to learn tonight, nothing left to remember before sleep. The migrations, the genes, the slow shifting of light and skin, all of it can rest now. It will still be here, patiently, whenever your mind chooses to return to it. For now, let it fade gently, the way every quiet story fades into restful sleep. Picture, if you can, the gentle rhythm of waves folding endlessly onto a quiet shore. This same patient rhythm shaped the slow story you have followed tonight. Nothing about it was sudden, forceful, or hurried, only steady, repeated, and patient. Let your breathing match that same gentle rhythm now, slow and steady, in and out. With each breath, let yourself drift a little further into calm, restful sleep. Outside your window tonight, the same ancient sky watches over a world shaped by this long story. Every person sleeping beneath it carries their own quiet chapter of human history. None of these chapters compete with one another. They simply exist, side by side, peacefully. There is room enough in this story for every shade, every shape, every quiet variation. Let that thought rest gently with you as you continue drifting toward sleep. There is no need to hold on to anything from tonight's story any longer. Let the migrations fade, let the genetics soften, let the timeline slowly dissolve. All that matters now is the quiet stillness settling gently into the room around you. Like a fire slowly dimming to soft embers, let your thoughts dim in the same gentle way. Rest now, in the calm and quiet that this long story leaves behind. Imagine a soft fog drifting gently across your mind, blurring every sharp edge of thought. There is nothing urgent left to hold on to, nothing left that needs your attention tonight. Let this gentle fog carry away any remaining tension from the day behind you. With every slow breath, let yourself sink a little deeper into restful stillness. The story is finished now. Only quiet, peaceful rest remains. As the light of tonight's story dims, let your own awareness dim gently alongside it. There is no need to follow it any further, no need to think beyond this moment. Let stillness replace thought, and let quiet replace any remaining alertness. You are safe, you are calm, and you are exactly where you need to be right now. Let sleep arrive gently, the way evening light fades softly into night. Somewhere far away, beneath a different sky, this same story continues its slow unfolding. But here, in this quiet moment, none of that needs to concern you any longer. Let the wide world rest outside, while you rest peacefully within. There is nothing left to carry from tonight except calm and the soft weight of rest. Let your body grow heavier now, sinking gently into comfort and stillness. Like ripples fading slowly across calm water, let your thoughts settle into stillness. Each ripple grows smaller, softer, quieter, until the surface returns to perfect calm. Let your own mind follow this same gentle pattern, fading slowly into quiet rest. There is nothing left to disturb this stillness, nothing left to think about tonight. Only calm remains now, spreading gently through your mind and body. Tonight's long, patient story is now complete, resting quietly behind a closed door. You do not need to open it again until you are ready, whenever that may be. For now, let it remain closed, peaceful, and undisturbed in the quiet of the night. Your only task now is rest, gentle and complete, without effort or thought. Let that rest come easily, the way night follows day, softly and without resistance. Let your body feel as light and unhurried as a single feather drifting gently downward. There is no need to hold tension anywhere, not in your shoulders, your hands, or your mind. Let everything soften, slowly, the way that feather drifts without effort toward the ground. Sleep is not something to chase, only something to allow, gently, in its own time. Let it arrive now, softly, the way that feather finally comes to rest. As more stars quietly appear above, let your own awareness fade gently alongside them. There is nothing more to notice, nothing more to follow, nothing more to think about. Only the soft, steady presence of rest, spreading slowly through the quiet dark. Let yourself sink fully into this stillness now, without resistance, without effort. Sleep is close now, gentle and patient, just as this whole story has been. Let this final light fade now, slowly, the way every quiet story eventually comes to rest. There is nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to remember before sleep. Only soft darkness remains now, calm and complete, wrapping gently around you. Let yourself rest fully within it, safe, still, and at peace. Sleep now, gently, and let the rest of tonight belong only to quiet rest. And so, the long story of how humans became different colors quietly comes to its end. It carries no conclusion to memorize, no lesson to repeat, only a gentle sense of connection. Every shade of skin, every quiet variation, traces back to the same patient beginning. Let that thought rest with you now, soft and unhurried, as sleep gently takes hold. Good night, and rest peacefully within this long, shared, and quietly beautiful story.